I feel like when you're in that situation, you're like, there's something wrong with me, and that's why I'm being treated this way.
Mm.
No, there's something wrong with him. He's a psychopath.
So, ha- hey guys, we're back here with episode 5 of the Distant Discussions podcast. And of course, I'm here with,
Catherine, hi guys, welcome back.
and today we have some interesting topics we want to cover. We got how to deal with heartbreak, and following that, we have how to deal with change. These two things kind of intertwine with each other, you know, but I think we have some interesting stories. So, I'm gonna let Catherine take this over.
Yeah, so to start off, I would like to share my like heartbreak stories, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I'll get into how I dealt with it after Sebastian shares some of his experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have to say my biggest heartbreak was probably leaving my friends behind when I was in high school and moving here. I think that was what really impacted my life, and that was a whole lot of change at the same time, which is probably why it was such a heartbreak for me. But I think the biggest thing that broke my heart was leaving my best friend behind. And I remember it was, I think, a week before I moved to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend and I, and also we had another friend at the time, the three of us went to a movie. And then our friend ended up leaving early after the movie. And her and I just stayed there. And I will never forget, Stolen Dance was playing in the background on a speaker, and then me and my best friend were sitting on a bench and we were just talking. And then she starts crying and telling me, like, I don't want you to leave. And that broke my heart. Like, I don't know what it was because obviously at that age, I like didn't have a choice really.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave her. And she was the one person I really bonded with. Like, she was the first girl I had ever bonded with like that in terms of like really having a best friend. Like, she was the one person that at the time like was my best friend, the only girl I had had
I
that
mean,
was that close to me.
did you ever do anything to try and change your parents' minds, or did you ever do anything to kind of force their hand so you can stay there?
I mean, I did, being 17, I didn't understand why they wanted to move. Like in my head, like as a teenager, I was like, they're ruining my life. Like they don't care about me, which obviously wasn't true. And now that I think about it, I do have so many more opportunities here, and I'm so grateful, that we
Yeah.
moved out here. And but at the time, I really didn't see it like that, and I was living in my own little high school bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my friends, and I also even contemplated staying in college there. But now that I think about it, I love my family so much and I'm so close to them. I don't think I would have been able to really be happy like that.
So you think eventually you would have went back home with them, like moved
What do
back,
you mean?
like if you had ended up staying in college and stayed with like your best friend, eventually you would have gone to a point where you would have moved to Arkansas anyways, back with your parents.
Yeah, I feel like eventually that would have happened because not only that, but the cost of living in California is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think I would have been able to stay there. Like that wasn't something I could have done long term anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like that was definitely one of my heartbreaks. And I remember this one also has to do with my best friend, but this has to do more with change.
Mm-hmm.
But it also broke my heart at the time. Um, so when I was going through my first breakup, I really wanted to talk to my best friend, but I knew she was so busy. I was so busy, and it was hard for us to get a hold of each other,
Yeah.
especially because we're on like different time zones. It's not like that big of a difference, but it's still kind of a difference when you have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was hard for me to get a hold of her, and we were both had our own separate lives. And at that point, I was like, I don't know why that broke my heart so much, but I think it was simply the fact that we were changing. And I thought we were growing apart, but in reality, we're just like have responsibilities now. We're adults, we have jobs, we have a schedule. We can't just talk whenever we want to, kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I remember I went to California not too long ago. And when she picked me up, she was crying. And when left, I was crying. It's oh so emotional. And we actually talked about that. We talked about everything about how we had like not talked for a while in terms of the fact that we just, were busy and we weren't avoiding each other. We've just had, you know, our separate lives and that's okay.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that was my like biggest heartbreak, I would have to say. But that was in terms of friendship, I guess. I also went through like another heartbreak, but I wouldn't say that one was my biggest heartbreak. I got over it, I think, pretty fast. But it was my first like relationship heartbreak, I would have to say.
I mean, before anything, like it seems so when you just talked about
Mhm.
like heartbreak doesn't necessarily mean it has to end. It's kind of just, it's a phase that you go through, even if it's just a friend.
Yeah, I guess I would have to say sometimes change causes heartbreak.
Mm,
That's kind of what that one was. It was just change and being apart.
okay.
But yeah, with my relationship one, um, that was my first relationship and it was a horrible breakup. I It wasn't the way I pictured it to
Mm-hmm.
happen, you know what I mean? Not that I sat there and thought about a breakup, but when I did think about like, oh, I wonder what how my first relationship is gonna end. I didn't think it would end the way it did.
How did you think it would
Um,
end?
I don't think I didn't think that the person I would date or the first relationship I would get into would treat me in such a way that they could I guess to me it's like I didn't think someone could quote unquote dispose of me so easily because that's what that felt like. It felt like I was
Mm,
disposable.
yeah.
And I don't even think the actual breakup is what broke my heart. What broke my heart was everything accumulated and the way I was treated. And I think that is what makes it harder to deal with because it kind of becomes in your brain like, what is wrong with me? When in reality, there's nothing wrong with you. And I wish I could like tell that to girls that are in bad relationships because I feel like when you're in that situation, you're like, there's something wrong with me and that's why I'm being treated this way.
Hmm.
No, there's something wrong with him. He's a psychopath.
So, how, so
I'm
then,
sorry.
if you could go back now, how would you have dealt with the breakup?
I do think I dealt with the breakup in a pretty good way as it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the one mistake I made was feeling bad for him. So
Mm,
I allowed him to kind of contact me for like the first month. And I think now what I would have done was immediately block him on every single thing I could have. Because I feel like for me, like you know this, I'm like such a forgiving person.
yeah.
And I had no intentions of taking him back. But I also felt bad for him because I did date him for a long period of time.
Hmm.
And regardless of what he did to me, I just felt bad for him because of, whatever he was going through at the time. But to me, I feel like that's what I would have done differently because the breakup would have gone so much more like smoothly and I wouldn't have had to deal with a lot of the stuff he put me through after. And I feel like I could have done a better job of that. But in the moment, hindsight,
Yeah.
now I
Well,
can like I didn't know that someone who supposedly loved me was capable of doing that to me after you know what I mean? Like to me, it just didn't make sense and I think I was just ignorant at the time, if I'm being 100% honest.
hmm.
I don't think I was thinking like the way I should. I think I was just, I would always, like, I was gonna say, I feel like I was way too forgiving, but I still would be that forgiving because that's what God would want us to do. So it's not that. I think I just wouldn't be as lenient, and I think I would
Yeah.
have protected myself more than I did at the time.
So looking back at it, it's more of like you definitely would have been the type to be in a situation where you forgive but you don't forget, and you also kind of just move on even quicker than you would have.
Yeah, I think that would have been the case. I definitely feel like that heartbreak was just very it was much needed to
Hmm.
help me um, see some people's real, like, true colors and true intentions. And not everybody has the best intention, like, with you as much as they may say they do. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Do you think that this situation really helped you grow up like a lot more, or at least a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think back to it and I was like, why did I do that? I could have just blocked him. I could have just ghosted him. Not even ghosted him. But I don't know why I dealt with that. And it's funny because I have these conversations with my mom. Hi, mom. And she's like, why? Like, I can't even answer it. I don't know why, but I do think that it all came from it being my first relationship. And I always wanted to marry the first person I dated. That's kind of dumb. I
It's
don't know
almost like
why.
trying to be perfect in your life when you just can't be.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of that. And I also didn't want to go to the trouble of getting to know so many people and just like the talking phase, the beginning of dating. I just didn't want to do that all over again.
Hmm.
And instead of leaving, I was like, okay, this person's gonna change. This person's gonna change. And it was that really whole relationship wasn't just one heartbreak. I would probably say there was like 100 of them in that relationship. And I don't think the biggest heartbreak was the breakup. I think the biggest heartbreak was, in the relationship. So
Like,
I think that breakup was the biggest relief I had.
so, well, can you go into a little more detail of like what you mean by that? Like the 100 heartbreaks within the relationship?
I just feel like I meant this in the last podcast actually about how some people will act a certain way
Hmm.
and portray themselves one way, but with time that whole persona or like mask just cracks.
Hmm.
That's exactly what started happening. And there was just lies after lies about the stupidest things, and that just like broke my heart because why am I being lied to?
Yeah.
Like, to me, there was just no trust. Like, it just wasn't the best situation for me. And um when I and Sebastian, like, me, like, I feel like I do try to communicate and I think I'm pretty good at communicating, although sometimes I can like get upset,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's usually a buildup of me like having to say something over and over again. And
Oh,
then I get frustrated and then I'm like, okay, now I'm mad.
yeah.
Like, that's usually how that goes. And I would try to communicate and communicate. I was shut down every time, like, time after time. And I would try to be so understanding and it just never worked out. And to me, it's like, it wasn't just the lies, but it was when I would try to communicate the way I was, I guess, treated when I would
Hmm.
try to communicate. And it kind of came off as me communicating being a bad thing. And that kind of led to me shutting down in terms of now. When I first started dating Sebastian, when like a small issue would arise, I would just shut down immediately.
Yeah.
And it was something I had to really work on. And Sebastian knew that about me, that I didn't used to be like that. Like, and it took me a while to kind of finally learn to start communicating. And even now, Sebastian knows this, communicating about the way I feel about things is still kind of hard for me because I feel like I'm gonna get yelled at, which I know
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
not how it should be, but
for sure. Like, I think throughout our, I guess, journey since we've been dating, it's kind of been like a step by step, you know. I remember when we first started dating, like we never really got into big arguments, but like something small would happen and it would be my fault. But the thing is, like, Catherine thought that if she tried to confront me about that, I would go off on her like crazy. Like I would absolutely rip into her, but I don't know. After, I think this was just a consistency thing. Like time after time that we kind of just kept talking, she became more comfortable with being able to communicate again. But yeah.
yeah, because one of the most heartbreaking memories I do have, and I remember telling Sebastian about this, is sometimes, we wouldn't, not Sebastian, my first relationship,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I would call him at the end of the night because, we hadn't talked all day, just to say goodnight, just to be nice. And the phone would be answered with yells and me being cussed out for just saying goodnight. And that's why when I started dating Sebastian, I was like, okay, can I do this? Like, and it really angers me that it affected me that much because I feel stupid for it. And it's like, I shouldn't have, like, that's so stupid. Like, why did I stay?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really explain it, even if I try to. Like, it's just really dumb.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I'm not saying it's dumb for people that stay. Like, people don't realize it until afterwards. Like,
Well,
oh, wow,
it's a
like, I
hard
shouldn't
situation to
have.
get out of. I mean, that, to a certain extent, it's completely understandable. Like, in those moments, you try to justify everything in your relationship, especially if you want to make it work. I mean, I definitely see that.
Yeah, and it didn't help that the next day I'd get phone calls like, I'm so sorry. I was just exhausted. Like, I was just exhausted. You woke me up. And it was just like nothing happened. So it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a weird cycle of things. And I don't know. It was one big heartbreak that was very much needed. Like I said earlier, that
Yeah.
was something that I really learned from. And that's one way to deal with heartbreaks, honestly. Like, look at them as a big lesson because that's what that was for me.
Yeah.
100%. And I remember talking to Sebastian about all of it. And although it did change me for a little bit, and I wasn't myself for a while until, I finally like grew and learned how to love myself. But when I talked to Sebastian about it, it was definitely like a conversation. It wasn't a conversation that I wanted to have, but I'm very glad that we did have it because realistically, I didn't want it to affect me that much, like I mentioned earlier. And but it definitely was a conversation that was needed. Yeah, so those are pretty much my heartbreak stories and just like a quick summary of some of the heartbreaks I remember the most, I guess.
So, how did you deal with the heartbreak?
So with my best friend, we kind of just I don't know, that one just kind of happened naturally. Like that one we just kept in touch eventually. We would like text. That one it was a heartbreak, but it's not something that was gone. Like that friendship is still there.
Yeah.
So that wasn't something that truly, truly broke my heart. But moving to Arkansas, that it just with time I got used to living here.
Mm-hmm.
So I got used to being around new people. And people say time heals, and I never believed that until now. Now I'm like, okay, like time really does heal. And with my first relationship, that one was definitely time as well as talking to some friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they helped me realize that that wasn't a healthy relationship at all because I didn't know because that was my first relationship.
Yeah.
Um, they helped me realize that it was really not my loss, it was his. And it's just everyone around me could see it. And that helped me like see that I wasn't really the problem because that's kind of how I was feeling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like I mentioned in last podcast, I grew my relationship with God. My relationship with my family grew. My relationship with Sebastian, our friendship grew. Um, I feel like I gained so much after that relationship ended
So,
that that's truly how I dealt with it.
so you think that relationship was really holding you back all along?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. Like, for sure because I didn't look my best. I didn't feel my best. I wasn't my best.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a lot of people around me and I realized that the one thing that changed between me making more friends and having more people approach me that were around me but never approached me was the fact that I no longer had that person in my life. So I started making friends with people that were there the whole time
Yeah.
and it just my life improved in so many ways, but it was hard to see it at first. And then it took me a while, and when I finally opened my eyes, I was like, wow, life has gotten so much better. Like, I really couldn't have asked for anything more. Like,
Yeah.
it was truly a blessing, and I think God saved me from a situation that could have been way worse. And I'm so grateful for that because I learned a lot from it, but I also learned how to deal with heartbreak in a healthy way.
So I mean, the biggest thing I really uh, got from it was that heartbreak truly just takes time, time to
Hmm.
process and time to understand, so that you can truly move on.
Yeah, and honestly, journaling, music, hobbies, reading, shows, all of that helped me so much.
Mm-hmm.
And in a weird way, like, I talked about mental health and how I was depressed before.
Yeah.
And um, I think reading, watching shows and stuff kind of was a much needed distraction from my brain, especially after my breakup. I would get like so into these shows, and Vampire Diaries is my comfort show. So I've watched it like four separate times, the whole show,
Yeah.
and I would just get so into it, and it just made me feel better. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think it gave me time to just get out of my own head.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how I dealt with heartbreak, but enough about me. I've been going on and on.
I
Um,
mean, it was
time for,
interesting.
well, thanks. Thank you. I hope my heartbreak story is interesting. um, time for you to share your experience with heartbreak.
I mean, yeah, I think my heartbreaks were relatively different
Hmm.
in the sense that I it's more of a disconnect than a like a relationship ending or something like that.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, everyone defines heartbreaks differently.
Hmm.
And what I think may be a heartbreak may not be a heartbreak to you, but it's very much valid. Like it's still a heartbreak.
Yeah, I mean, like my heartbreak is more catered to like the disconnect of friendships, and because that's truly where it comes from. I think about my high school relationship and then us talking in 2018. Like those were definitely, my re- I wouldn't say relationships because us talking wasn't really a relationship. Us just
Yeah.
talking, but those were definitely heartbreaks. But I think the biggest one was the disconnect, and it started from how I started my career in high school. Like for those of you that don't know, I was a professional um gamer. Like I played Rocket League professionally, and that kind of led me to having to focus on that pretty much 24/7. So I started to have to talk to my friends a lot less, and not only the ones that were in high school, but more so the ones that I grew up playing soccer with, because those people there were some of my closest friends growing up. I mean, we've known each other for such a long time,
Hmm.
and I mean, after kind of starting high school and then starting going into gaming, getting into that career, like there was a complete disconnect from them. Like I stopped talking to them. Yes, I saw them once here and once there. Like it was very, very sporadic. But at the end of the day, like I wasn't able to see them anymore. And those friendships there were the ones that I kind of whoa, familiarized myself with and truly became comfortable with, and it put a smile on my face. And so as time continued, I like me having this career, this is in my head at the time what I wanted, and I wanted to pursue this. At the same time, I kind of felt lost. I kind of felt empty inside because I was no longer doing it with the people around me. I
Hmm.
felt completely alone. And so over time, it kind of just started happening. It built up over time while I was in Texas. Like, man, I really don't have anyone I can just be like, yo, this look what I did. This was sick. Like at that time, it was really really hard to communicate with anyone, and it also does follow me. Like I definitely probably could have, but in my mind at the time, I was so focused on the game that one I would forget, but also I would kind of just um I'd feel bad. And I say I'd feel bad because I wouldn't have talked to them in such a long time that I felt bad for reaching out to them again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it really really built up, and I think at that point like I felt, like I said, I felt lost. And to me, my I just felt like I was going downhill. It was like
Yeah.
that heartbreak. It took a long time to repair. Um, I can't go really into depth with it because there's really nothing to go in depth with. It's more of just a very very big disconnect, and I think one thing that affected me more than heartbreak was just change. Like
Yeah.
Catherine said earlier, you know, heartbreak definitely does also come from change, but yeah, no, like the things that I've experienced in terms of heartbreak are definitely more towards my friends more than the romantic relationships that I had growing up.
Yeah. And, obviously you can experience heartbreak from friendships, ending. Like, I experienced heartbreak from my dog dying. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, a heartbreak is a heartbreak and it comes from many different aspects of your life. But, um, I do think that Sebastian and I have a pretty good understanding of change, and we've
Hmm.
kind of learned how to deal with it because I obviously moved to Arkansas twice. This
Yeah.
is my second time living here, and Sebastian has moved to so many different places at this point. So how would you say you have learned how to deal with like constant changes or just change in general?
I mean, I've been moving around since I was little. Like, just
Hmm.
a brief backstory. I mean, my parents were separated by the time I was like really small. So, obviously I lived with one parent and then lived with another parent. It was kind of just trading off from there growing up. So, right from the get-go, I was used to it for the most part.
Hmm.
Obviously I didn't like it and I didn't understand it. But as I got older and then once my career started, they moved me to Texas. And that was the first time I really experienced like a change of environment because now I was aware of
Yeah.
it and I was like understanding what was going on. I was very nervous. I have this little thing like right before I was gonna move to Texas, I got so nervous that I literally called my boss at the time. Like I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I really don't. Like I got like
Mhm.
homesick because it
Cold feet.
yeah, cold feet. Like it hit me
Mm.
right there. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I could do this. And, he kind of talked me back into it. And along with my coach at the time, they really talked me back into going. I was okay. And when I got there, everything was great. So I had my first good experience, changing my environment. And then after that, I came back home for a little bit. And, you know, me being a professional player allowed me to kind of travel to different places. Like when I came back home from Texas, I ended up going back to Texas at some point within the same year, and then I went to Canada twice. I think I went to Montreal and then Toronto afterwards. So I kind of
Mhm.
experienced a lot of different environments, and I started getting used to it. And eventually, up until I think last year, I finally moved to Florida for school, and
Mhm.
I stayed there for the entire school year. But at that point, it was like clockwork to me. I've moved so much at this point. I've experienced so many different environments that I was just like, oh, it's just another day. And Catherine and I obviously I have the intention of moving to Arkansas at some point. And it's so funny because she'll talk about like this is like a life changing thing for you. Like, how are you gonna deal with it? But honestly, to me, it's just changing environments. I don't see this as like any different from any other one that I've done in my life. It's like yes, my family will be here and I'll be over there, but that doesn't stop me from not being able to visit them at all. It's like if I want to visit them, I can, but I understand like the things I want to do in life and what I want, especially with Catherine. I mean, it's gonna have to be with change, and I'm completely okay with that. And we've talked about it plenty of times.
Yeah, I guess to me, it's like change is huge. Like, okay, if you know me, I love physical change. I love dyeing my hair. Like that, I don't mind. I can, like, I had my hair long. My hair ended up short because, like, it stayed short, but I went and I got a haircut and the lady cut it too short and my hair was way longer. And you know what? I just had short hair and I was okay with that. Like, I didn't really have an issue. Like, I can deal with change like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to changing my environment and going to whole new places, that is a lot more difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I tell Sebastian, like, are you sure or whatever? Like, are you positive? Because to me, it's just such a big life changing event.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just something I want to make sure that he's sure about before he moves over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that pretty much covers how we dealt or how we deal with change. Like, I feel like personally, I just give it time. It is hard at first, but with time, it gets better. And, I just try to look at the positive, especially when in a new environment, because it's hard to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the positive, your mindset slowly changes into it being more positive about the situation you're in. Like when I first moved here, I would look at all the grass and trees and I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's nothing here. And now I'm like, wow, it's so pretty. And that just came with having a positive mindset and with time.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, not only is it with time, but more so just taking it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just very important to look at the situation for what it is and kind of, you know, not in a mean way, but just learn to deal with it. It's like you're in the situation now, how can you make the most of it? And that's all I can say. It's like a everyone is going to have their own experiences. Everyone's going to have their own opinions about change. Um and heartbreak, but at the end of the day, if you feel something is right within reason, as long as it is towards like a positive path, then definitely go for it. I mean, just really focus in the moment rather than looking at it like, oh man, I could have done this and this and this. Because all that's going to do is kind of just put you into a really bad situation of how you feel emotionally.
Yeah. And pretty much concludes our topic of the day. But I have my celebrity um little segment.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a quick one today. I don't have too much information on this one,
Hmm.
but I wanted to talk about the rumors going on about Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater. Mm,
Wait,
let's get into
who?
that one.
Who's Ethan Slater?
You don't know who he is?
No.
I don't really know who he is, if we're being
Oh.
honest. Okay, he was married to his high school sweetheart, okay?
Hmm.
He like does theater, like musical theater.
Hmm.
I've seen clips of him doing the SpongeBob musical theater thing, and it's just so cringy. Anyway, so he was married to his high school sweetheart,
Yeah.
had a baby with her, and they got a divorce. And him and Ariana Grande were working on Wicked, the musical,
Mm.
together. And his wife came out and kind of like, I guess, it kind of made it sound like it was Ariana Grande. I think she might have said something about it because she said something in like along the lines of, oh, like she carried her baby and said she wanted one.
Hmm.
And then she went and like cheated, like my husband cheated on me with her.
The heck?
So apparently, I don't know how accurate this is, but apparently he left his wife that he's been married to for like I don't know how long and was high school sweethearts with to date Ariana Grande. And she had just had a baby like a year ago, I think.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, wait, wait,
And
wait,
then
wait. Who had a baby?
Ethan Slater's wife.
That's crazy.
And then he left his wife to be with Ariana Grande, who also divorced her husband. Yeah. So
What is?
people are calling her a homewrecker now.
I mean, what is it? What is up with that?
It,
Why?
it it's funny because so many people are like okay, Ariana Grande has like a record. She has like a list of men she's dated, and Pete Davidson, Mac Miller, R.I.P. Um, all these different guys that she's dated, Big Sean, and people are like, oh my gosh, like jumps from relationship to relationship. He really left his wife to date her for a couple months. Like that's what people are saying. And it's not the first time someone's come out and said he's a homewrecker. Big Sean's ex-girlfriend, RIP. I
Mhm.
don't know her name. I keep forgetting her name. She came out in the show Glee.
Mhm.
Um, I forget her name. She was dating him before, and then I think she wrote a book and she mentioned how Ariana Grande, she came home to find them together, like while they were dating. And there's been so many other situations where it's kind of like, oh, whoever was dating her like cheated on their girlfriend with her, and like she was okay with it.
Bruh.
So people are like, the song "Break Up with Your Girlfriend" because I'm bored or whatever, how she like sings it. People are
Yep,
like,
I remember
wait,
that
like
song.
yeah. People are like, wait, is she being like legit? Like,
I mean, at that point, it seems like she is, but like, it doesn't really matter. People are still gonna idolize her, cause why not?
I know.
It's
I've seen
sad.
so many. I've seen posts of people being like, "Oh, it's okay, Ariana Grande, I forgive you. Just drop the next album," or like stuff like that. And I'm like, what? Like, I hate how people like dismiss the behavior of some celebrities simply because they like him.
I mean, that goes with like any person that they idolize. It's kind of just as long as they produce good music for them or produce any type of entertainment for them that they like, they'll just let it, oh, put it under the carpet, didn't happen. But that's just crazy. Ariana Grande being a homewrecker with their music that she puts out, definitely see that. I could definitely see that. It makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's you know, n- I feel like Ariana Grande fans are gonna ride for her though.
It's all right though. I mean, to be fair, like Ariana Grande did her stint with Nickelodeon, and then she got big off of her loud freaking screaming or screech that she could do. You know what I'm talking about,
Hmm.
right? When
The
she goes the
whistle,
super high pitch. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
she got really big off of that. I mean, what can I
It's
say?
just yeah, then it's crazy that she went from a Nickelodeon star to potentially being a homewrecker.
Ooh,
But there's a
that's
lot
not a
of
good
rumors
track
of like
record.
I know, but a lot of celebrities have like said stuff about her. So I'm just like, why do I kind of believe it?
I mean, celebrities aren't gonna call out other celebrities, otherwise everyone else is gonna dig up dirt on them, and it's gonna become this cycle of just exposing absolutely everyone. That's the only reason. I mean, I can definitely believe that.
Yeah, but there's also people that like don't care. Like look at Kanye West.
That's Kanye West.
I know.
What do you?
Yeah. Well, that was it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned. I'll probably have another celebrity tea situation going on for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if we keep this segment going. Let's see how much dirt I can dig up on celebrities, and then we'll see if this is a great segment to keep in.
Yeah. Well, that was today's Distant Discussions podcast, and and if you guys liked it, be sure to like this podcast on YouTube. If you guys are watching through YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button too while you're at it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys are watching through any other platform, be sure to leave a review. Let us know what you guys liked, what you guys didn't like. We like the feedback to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
we could do better every time. Um, yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.